Welcome to the Pathstream Podcast. At Pathstream, our mission is to prepare students of all ages for high-demand digital skills careers. And in this podcast, we talk to real-world professionals who are working in those high-demand jobs right now to learn about how they got started. We also talk to students who have successfully gone through our programs, we learn more about the humans behind Pathstream, and we chat with other leaders in online learning and the future of work to see where this industry is headed. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Pathstream Podcast. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Shade. Today, we're very excited that we have the opportunity to highlight one of our all-star students, Kyndall. Kyndall recently completed the Facebook Digital Marketing Certificate. Speaking of Facebook, Anthony, when last were you on Facebook?
Well, I'm old. I'm not cool. I don't understand social media, so it's been many years since I got onto Facebook, but thankfully I'm with two people that I think understand social media better, and one expert being Kyndall now, so I'm excited to hear more from you all about this.
I'm excited too. Today we're just going to chat about her experience. So, maybe Anthony can learn a little something, and I will too, obviously, and just see some of her strategies for success. So, Kyndall, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'll kick it off with a quick question. I just want to know a little bit about your journey to Pathstream and how you got interested in digital marketing.
So what's funny is that when I graduated college as a computer animator, it's like I thought that my path was going to lie more in like creating 3D animation, since that's what I specialized in. And trying to break into the field, I thought that one of my best bets was to like position myself somewhere where the industry was more active in it. So my fiance and I ended up moving down to Orlando, Florida to put myself into that position. So while there, it's like, even though I didn't have a job lined up for computer animation, I picked up like one of the first things that I could find, and it was direct sales or direct marketing. And I was one of the people that was standing like in front of a kiosk in Sam's Club. And personally, I didn't like it, but I loved the training that they gave us as far as marketing. It just made me nervous to be standing in front of people, but being able to talk to everyone and learning like the different personalities that did approach us, it kind of ignited that interest in trying to figure out what is it that attracts people to a specific product. So whenever I transitioned from there to a few other roles, then finally into multimedia design, I started my blog, Kyrabe Stories, for personal and professional development. And I realized, like, hey, look, in order for me to grow, I do need to know how to market myself, at least virtually. So trying to reach out to people who was more experienced with blogging, they did their best to take me under their wing, but they was like, yeah, you need to learn affiliate marketing and social media marketing and influencer marketing. I'm like, I'm still learning WordPress. What are these terms you were throwing at me? And the more I tried to learn what all these different marketing strategies was and try to figure out how to piece together, like, what is this? I finally came across like the overall umbrella term for digital marketing, just being able to promote yourself on any type of digital device. I'm like, okay, if I can at least gain a grasp of the overarching meaning of marketing digitally, maybe I can figure out, or at least on an electronic device, maybe I can help myself grow from there. And that's kind of how I started to dive more into digital marketing.
That's amazing.
I'm curious, and then how'd you wind up finding the Pathstream program specifically?
thanks to Google. It's like once I started plugging in all these different terms for marketing, learning, or watching different tutorials on LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, whatever I could, I started seeing more advertisements for digital marketing, but it was coming from different sources. And eventually it kind of got boiled down between, I think, the University of Central Florida that was also promoting digital marketing course and Pathstream. And I spent a couple of weeks comparing the two. And a downside was that the University of Central Florida, theirs was strictly on campus. And with me working on the other side of town from where we lived, I'm like, okay, am I really going to have the time to dedicate working full time? Because at this point, we hadn't gone into the pandemic, everyone worked from home. It's like, okay, can I drive to work Monday through Friday and still make it to these classes? Or should I try to do it online? And that's what won out for Pathstream. It was completely online. It was a flexible schedule. I could work on it either after work or before work, or if I had some downtime at work to actually work on these courses.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and we hear kind of similar things from other students. So it's cool to kind of hear that was your experience too. You mentioned your blog and your community, Kyrabe Stories. I want to give you a chance to really talk, a little bit more about that and tell us, how'd that get started? What is it? What's it about? And why it's important to you? And then maybe we can talk about, what did you learn from the Facebook Digital Marketing Certificate and how to expand your blog audience?
Thank you. So when I was in high school, like getting close to graduation, I too thought that the next step was college. It's like I wasn't really aware of trade schools, certifications, licenses, things like that. I just figured, okay, I'm getting close to finishing high school. The next step is college. And at that point, even in high school, that close to graduation, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just thought I needed to go to college for something. I didn't really have that understanding of career aspiration. And it was thanks to my mom, who came into my room and saw her little teenager watching Nickelodeon while sketching different characters and writing stories, where she was like, why don't you just go to college for this? There's people who make these cartoons. You can go to college for computer animation. And I looked at her like she just told me where treasure was. I'm like, you serious? I can go to college for this? Why am I just learning this? And we learned soon after that art school is not cheap, like at all. And my mom, who was then a second grade teacher, she was never one to try to tell someone that they couldn't accomplish something. Like that's one thing she always instilled in me, that if there's anything that you want to do in life, it's your responsibility to find a way. And she told me, she's like, look, to earn this degree, and at that time, we was only looking at the Art Institute. We didn't know about Savannah College of Art and Design. We missed the financial aid window, and my mom was like, look, if you want to do this, you got to find a way. And I ended up telling her that we had a visitor coming, and that visitor was a Navy recruiter, and my mom freaked out. But it's like I felt like I was stuck, that I didn't really have that many options. And for college to be this expensive, it's like, look, I feel like the only way that I can get from point A to what I thought was point A, point B, I got to take a detour earn the GI Bill in order to accomplish this. It's like I just accepted what I believe was fact, that college is expensive, education is expensive. If I want to reach that point, I got to find some way to drop that much money in order to get the education that I need to pursue my dream. And once I got through military and got into Savannah College of Art and Design, I saw so many of my fellow classmates stressing not only about the coursework because their curriculum is intense, but also stressing about how they were going to pay for this. Because it's like I realized many of them came straight from high school to college, and whatever financial aid they were able to get with a college that expensive, it creates a lot of pressure to try to figure out, like, hey, one, is this what I really want to do? And two, is it worth this deep of debt to try to accomplish? And once I finished college and realized how hard it was to actually try to break into the industry without actually knowing anyone, I started my blog to try to reveal all this. It's like, hey, look, this isn't your only choice. I'm learning now that I could have pursued like a certification or license, like with, say, Adobe, to try to do the same thing that I'm doing now. Here's how you craft a resume, something that I didn't realize, like with the ATS system, I didn't know that a lot of my resumes wasn't really getting through there. This is how you craft a cover letter. Like a lot of the stuff, I was like, I wish I would have known this back in high school before I went through all of this headache trying to figure it out on my own. And through that path and being able to talk to other people who were stressing about their own educational goals and the blockways that prevented them from reaching it, I wanted to create a community that actually educated our youth to say, hey, look, this isn't your only option. There are other opportunities, but first we need to figure out what it is that you want to do. And then from there, gauge how much education that you need to get you there.
And it's so phenomenal. You know, people like you, I think, are so inspiring because you not only you identified what you felt like was a problem, you did something about it. You decided that you were going to gather knowledge and try to share it with a community of folks to try to help them figure something out that, you know, you really would have liked to have figured out earlier. And I think I'm actually, you know, quite similar to you, Kyndall, and I think a lot of people are, in that we just sort of accepted earlier in life that education had to be this really super expensive, kind of exclusive thing. And I'm wondering, why do you think so many of us, why do you think we just accepted that earlier in our lives?
Honestly, I think it's because many of us may not have had the resources to expand beyond that, because many of us, like at least millennials and up, we didn't have Google, or well, we did have Google, but not the same as we have now. It was like many of us were older than Google, and we were still trying to figure out how to use the darn thing. Like, hey, what can we look up? We don't have
Kyndall,
to.
Kyndall, I'm so old. I had Ask Jeeves. That's what I had.
See? So it's like we didn't have as many resources as we have access to now. Like, unless we wanted to go to the library and try to figure out which one of the books could answer the question that we needed, we kind of just depended on whoever was within our immediate circle to answer our question. So if they only had this much knowledge, that's the knowledge that they could pass down generation to generation. We kind of just took it as truth. So now that we have like Google, where we can literally look up just about anything, that's expanding our knowledge more than we probably could have ever hoped for. And I think that's one of the biggest contributing factors as to why this is being exposed now instead of before, because we have we're connected to the world now. We can ask questions beyond our own country as to what's going on, whereas before we didn't have that.
That's absolutely right. It's funny that you say that, but I just began to think about how the world is changing and how, because we have such access to all this knowledge, people are rethinking what is success really looks like. Like when you said, do I need to go into all this debt in order to get this education? Like, how can I, like there's no longer just one path to that success that we thought. There's no longer that ladder, that you climb. It's more like a jungle gym. People are even rethinking so much as like even just buying a car. Like, if I live downtown, do I really need a car? And can I just, rent a car for the rest of my life or something like that? But that just kind of got me thinking about all of that. And I love what you said about how we're a lot more connected and there's information at our fingertips. And that kind of got me thinking, like, how did you get connected to Zeit? I said it right? Zeit?
Yes, Zeit.
Zeit.
So
yeah.
This was interesting because Amy from Pathstream, I love how avid she is about trying to connect us to different resources based off whatever program we connect it to. And Amy ended up connecting me with Mary from Matheson to see if I could help out with some of their social media. Well, they just needed someone who was like entry level. The interview ended up turning more into like a consultation to provide like different tips. Like, yeah, if you're wanting to do this, I would suggest Instagram. However, if you're more focused on this audience, it would be better for Facebook. However, if you're more focused on this, Twitter would be good. And Mary from Matheson like straight up told me, I think you are overqualified for this role. And I'm like, I never thought I would hear those words before I turned 30. Wow. But Mary ended up in some type of networking event where she ran into Ambika from Zeit. And Mary told Ambika about me, about all the stuff that I'm doing with multimedia design, that I'm a content creator. And Ambika reached out to me, and that's how I ended up helping Zeit build up some of their social media resources in order to reach out to individuals who are more focused on career transitions into customer success and things like that, to help out with editing their master classes.
Oh, that's such an interesting story. Like, I actually didn't know that it was this little, it's like a little journey of its own.
And it's like, I think that was my first time realizing how powerful networking can be.
Absolutely. I think that's one thing that I even learned a while ago. It's just like the power of connections. And I'm sure with your blog, Kyrabe Stories, you're going to continue making those connections and reaching more people and people finding you. Like,
I hope so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's awesome that you mentioned Amy, who does our career services over here at Pathstream, and we absolutely love Amy here, and it's great that you shouted her out. And
she's amazing. I love her. She's super reliable, and I hope she hears this.
I that's why I'm like drawing our attention back to it, because I really want her to hear it too. And I mean, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how that whole, I think you started to mention this with your experience with Zeit, but how did your once you finished the Facebook digital marketing certificate, how did the career services side of things go for you at Pathstream?
So whenever I completed the Facebook digital marketing course in July 2020, so we was already, the company that I was working with, Victor 12, who focuses on e-learning as well, and amazing company. Unfortunately, they got hit with a whole bunch of the issues with COVID as well, to where my team ended up having to get laid off. And it was weird. It was like, I just got this certification. Ah, crap, I just lost my job. What am I going to do with this certification? And it's like, it took a moment for it to click. It's like, look, you have your blog, you have the experiences that Victor 12 has now given you. They provided you with your own learning experiences as well. Put this stuff together and figure out a solution. So even though the layoff at that moment was a major panic blow, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? It kind of ignited that fire underneath my behind to say, hey, look, you've been saying that you want to get more into freelancing. You've been saying you want to grow Kyrabe stories. You no longer have your pillow anymore. It's time to figure this out. How can you expand Kyrabe stories, expand your freelancing skills beyond what it is now in order to survive? And using what I learned from the digital marketing course, it's like, okay, I have the blog. Let me improve my SEO. Let me go in, update some of the posts to see if I can fit some of the keywords so that people can find me. Okay, you took the social media marketing course, update some of your posts to make it more appealing to the targeted audience that you need. The social media marketing course also explained, like, hey, look, you don't have to be on every single social media page, but you do need to be on the page that your audience, your target audience is on. At the moment, at that point, I was kind of more focused on Facebook, which focuses more on the older audience. I was like, okay, I need to reach out to Gen Z and millennials, things like that. Where are they at? And I realized I had the app already on my phone, TikTok. So some of the suggestions that were in the digital marketing course, I applied that to making video content that related to the stuff that I was talking about on the blog, but I still made it a little bit different just to add variety. And from some of the suggestions from that course throughout 2020, I've been able to grow the TikTok community up to, I think, past 30,000 personnel now. So it's amazing. Just little tiny tips, being able to apply that to different areas and say, okay, how can I expand this? How can I improve this? Okay, you know what? This isn't working. I tried out different tests for this. Test C and D didn't do that well, but B is doing okay. Let's turn off these two and focus more on this strategy.
I'm sorry, you said 30,000?
Yes. So
oh my gosh.
When I first started taking the courses for the digital marketing, I think I hadn't even reached 1,000 followers on TikTok yet. I think I was more like at 100 something. And I was just using it casually. And it's like, I didn't notice. It's like, it went over my head, the potential that I could be using for this app. Like, I may not have been doing a lot of the TikTok dances, but I'm like, you know what? I don't have to do that. I don't have to do what is overall trending. I can put my own spin to it. So I started making little skits to where I would dress up as random characters to pretty much make the information that I was providing on the blog a little bit more lively, a little more entertaining. And that helped me grow the TikTok community from like 100 to over 30,000 followers. And it was mainly thanks to a lot of the tips that was explained in the course.
I was going to say, I think we need to see you with that. I think at the end of I don't know, at some point, because you brought that out and I'm like, wait, go back. I need to see a character.
I got so, like, I want to get more wigs though, but like, I have my old lady wig. I have like the secretary wig somewhere in here. We moved and I kind of panned it for a moment. I'm like, I know I put my wigs in a certain package. Where did we move that package?
I think it's just amazing that you've learned to speak the language of the people that you're trying to reach, right? And you're able to like, apply that digital marketing and into the spaces that are really important. I think that's all that, marketing is you're trying to get the attention of the masses in their own language. I think it's incredible.
It does take a lot of research because what may work for one group may not work for another group. They might find it annoying, whereas another group might find a different strategy boring. So you really have to do a whole bunch of trial and errors and be open to critique to figure out what will work best for your targeted audience.
So I think I don't think we've touched on this at all yet, Kyndall, but we did notice that you were in a feature at the Wall Street Journal, and I was just so curious about how, just tell us about that story and how it all came to pass.
I'll be honest, even I'm still mind blown that fell into my messages. So because I'm really passionate about learning, one platform that I use a lot is LinkedIn Learning. I've been using them throughout college, back when it was still branded as Linda. So I ended up doing a promotion helping LinkedIn Learning with one of their packages that they put together to help out the people who were struggling during the COVID pandemic, who may have got hit with one of the layoffs like myself, to try to, it was free, I think 20 free classes that they were going to offer in order to help people improve on certain skills. And I just happened to take one or two of the courses that they were putting into this package. And they reached out to me and asked, like, hey, look, we've chatted before. We see that you're doing this with Kyrabe Stories. Would you be interested in providing a little clip as to what you thought about this course you took? I'm like, collaborate with LinkedIn Learning? Heck yeah, let's go for it. And after doing that promotion, we stayed in contact, and they asked me as well. It was like, so what's going on with you, Kyrabe Stories? And I let them know. It's like, hey, look, I was one of the individuals down in Florida that got hit with the layoffs. But thanks to a lot of the courses I've been taking on LinkedIn Learning, the courses I took with Pathstream, I'm getting more into freelancing and trying to start my own business with this while trying to grow my brand. So they were like, okay, cool. Fast forward a couple of months, and they reach out to me saying, hey, we came across, I believe, Gary from Wall Street, who is working on an article and wants to focus on individuals who got laid off during the pandemic, who decided to go into freelancing and start their own business. And we was like, we know someone who matches that precisely. And even I was like, good Lord, what are the odds that I would match that precisely? I'm about to go get a lottery ticket. And they ended up connecting me with Gary, and it was like, I really can't believe this is happening, but let's go for it. And that's how I ended up talking with the Wall Street Journal, mainly because of taking initiative within a moment of the unknown and just going from there.
I feel like that line right there, taking initiative with the moment of unknown, that should be like tweeted or TikTok. Like that is the intro of a really good book.
Go for it. If y'all want to quote that, feel free to tag me at Kyrabe Stories.
We might need to make that the title of the episode.
I will feel honored.
Did anything, after that article came out in the Wall Street Journal that featured you, did you notice like anything changed it? Like, did you see a big influx of traffic to your blog, or did other people reach out? Or I'm just wondering how that affected your life.
I had more people reaching out on me on LinkedIn. I had one individual from Apple who wanted to talk to me, and we got to chat it for a little bit. And I'm hoping that he told me about the one of the programs that Apple does that trains like people with creative skills in order to push it even further. I'm like, yo, I'd be more than happy if you want to give me a reference to join that. Shoot, yes, I would love to do something like that. So I'm hoping that I get an opportunity to compete for one of those roles. I had some people reach out asking questions like, hey, what was it like starting to freelance? And I was completely honest. I'm like, look, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I just jumped in and tried to figure it out. And it's amazing how many people just reached out from a single article like, hey, we're trying to do something similar that you're doing. You think you can guide us? And I'm like, I'll be honest, I'm figuring it out too. The best thing you can do is just jump in and figure it out. Like, if you're scared, that's okay. I'm scared too.
Right. It's like do it afraid. I had a follow-up question with that. You know, what is one advice you would have for people that are looking to freelance or that are freelancing right now? What would you tell them?
Don't try to wait until you're ready, because that feeling is not going to come, like, ever. It doesn't matter how many tutorials you watch, how many podcasts you listen to, how many books you read. What's going to get you those opportunities is starting it ignorant and just figuring out as you go, and embrace the guarantee that you're going to make mistakes. Like, it doesn't matter how much you try to prep for it. You're going to make some mistakes. Some of them are going to be blunders that all you can do is like that nervous laugh to. But every mistake that you make is a learning opportunity that will push you even further later. So no matter how terrified you are, just go ahead and do it and figure it out as you go.
I mean, I think you're articulating something that is so important, I think, when it comes to learning, that mindset that you just described. How did you reach that point, though? Do you remember the point where you figured out that was how you needed to look at failure, or like a quote unquote mistake, and those were just opportunities that you could learn from and grow from? Like, how did you get to that place where you were comfortable with that?
I think it initiated in the military, because when I went in as an aviation structural mechanic, because that was the position that was open. And I'm like, you know what? I'm scared, but I really want to go to college, so I'll figure it out. And once I got in there, I realized I'd had no idea what I was doing, and nor did I really understand the pressures of going into that field. Because prior to it, the only thing I had ever fixed were roller skates from my first job at a skating rink. So when I actually got to my squadron and they showed me a list of qualifications that I needed to get in order to effectively work on the H-60 helicopters, they looked me dead in the eyes and told me, if you do not put your heart and soul into learning all what you need to learn, people could die. And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. But once I actually started doing it with my supervisors, with my petty officers, they stood behind me, and I was like terrified, afraid to touch anything. They told me, it's like, look, you're going to make mistakes. It's like, we're not going to just let you screw up the helicopter because we don't want you to kill anyone. But you have, like, it doesn't matter how many times you read that manual. We're giving you the wrenches. We're giving you the tools. You're going to come out here and you're actually physically going to do it. And while out there, it's like, I've gotten fuel all over me. Some of it burning a little bit on my skin, where I had to go take a shower and scrub my skin off. I've been on top of the helicopter in the Middle East during their hottest seasons, getting burned from some of the stuff. having to go through a lot of their trainings, and I almost failed out of the mechanic school too, because it's like I couldn't figure out the information. But it's like every mistake that I made, it was like, okay, I messed up on this last time. Let me try something else. Okay, I fixed this. I'm making a mistake in here. Okay, I know not to do it that way. Let me try something else. So once I actually got my qualifications and became one of the trainers, it's like I still had that fresh memory of learning from my mistakes. So whenever I got my trainees and they were scared, I'm sitting out on the helicopter with them. It's like, you're going to mess up. You're going to get burned by something. It's okay. Take that scar, learn from it. Don't touch it again. You'll figure it out. So after my time in the military, even throughout college, learning how to become a character rigger for 3D animations, I broke so many 3D objects in using Autodesk Maya. And it was like, okay, let me figure out what I did wrong so I can figure out what I can do right. And that mentality had just stuck with me throughout the years. It's like, okay, look, you're going to make mistakes. Don't let them go in vain. Acknowledge what it is that you messed up at and figure out what it is that you can do differently to try to make it do better.
That is an amazing articulation. It's an amazing mindset that you've developed over the years through that, I think, very impressive experience. I'm sorry, Shade, did you want to ask a follow-up to that before I asked another question?
Honestly, no, go ahead. I just wanted to echo what you said, Anthony. Like that is life. It's like, okay, I pressed this button and it didn't work. I won't press it again. And now I remember it, right? And it's just like being able to, recover from all that you've learned and then apply it and be better. So I'm just loving all of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, 1,000%. I maybe this is a little bit of a natural segue, but and you've probably already touched on this, Kyndall, but I'm curious, because there are a lot of other students who will be listening to this podcast, and since you're someone who we really think of as an all-star, a Pathstream all-star graduate, what?
Okay.
Oh, 100%. I'm just wondering, if you were talking to other students who are going through a Pathstream program or an online learning program who were struggling right now, maybe they were just having a tough time juggling all their tasks or balancing their real world responsibilities with the educational responsibilities. Do you have any advice for them on how to not only overcome obstacles, but to thrive within that space of uncertainty?
One thing about taking an online class anywhere, even with a Pathstream, is that you really do have to manage your time wisely, like very wisely. It's easy to kind of neglect how long you wait to start something. And then once it piles up, it becomes so overwhelming that you're like, you know what's the point of doing it? I give up. Do your best to break it down. Like as soon as that course begins, what I did was look through the syllabus to figure out what to expect. And I tried my best to set aside enough time to break it down into bite-sized pieces. Like if you try to go through the course as a whole, it can look like it's overwhelming. However, if you go through it just bit by bit each day, it makes it a lot more, I don't want to say easier, but manageable to actually control your time. Like with me, since at that point I was still working a full-time job while trying to manage Kyrabe stories, what I did was go through the syllabus and figure out what part of the courses can I use that could also benefit Kyrabe stories as well. So that way I was knocking out two birds with one stone. So if kind of going back with career aspiration as well, if there is something that you've already acknowledged that you want to do, like let's say you want to go into blogging as well, or let's say any type of field that you want to go into that you feel that you can benefit from learning digital marketing, try to implement those two things together, because if you try to separate the two, it does kind of make it feel like you're having to choose one or the other, and then it's like competing, and it's like, okay, which one should I do? Should I focus more on working towards my personal goals, or should I work on the course? If you can combine the course with your personal goal, it makes it a lot more motivational to get through the courses as well, because they're complementing your goals instead of competing against it.
Brilliant. That's brilliant, because yeah, then in that way what I'm hearing is you're not divided internally, you're united internally, and that makes it a lot easier to stay on that path. That's at least what I'm hearing you say.
One thing I greatly admired about the digital marketing course is that y'all gave me the option to either work or do the project based off a recommended brand. It's like, hey, look, you can either choose these brands to try to do research into, or you can use your own brand. With me, I just happen to have my own brand, just starting off a lot smaller. And I reached out to the professor at Bellevue University that I was partnered with. And like, hey, look, this is my brand. This is what I've been doing with this. This is what Kyrabe Stories is focused on, personal and professional development. Do you think that I can use my brand for some of these courses? And she reached back out. She was like, yeah, go for it. And she warned me. She's like, yeah, since your brand is new, it might be a little bit more challenging because you're not going to have as much of the research that the other established brands have. But if you're willing to take on that challenge, go for it. And it's like, all right, let's figure this out. And I admit there were some projects that did kind of make it a little bit harder to do, because since the bigger brands like Netflix, Facebook, some of the other, I can't remember some of the other brands that was recommended to start off with, because they already established who they were, their targeted audience, like you already had that information. With me doing my own brand, it forced me to actually sit back and think like, oh my God, everything is disorganized. I got to figure this out if I'm going to pass this class and actually grow my brand. So if you can connect the two together like that, I feel like you're going to be a lot more driven to improve yourself within the digital marketing field.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. And it's funny when you said, we were talking about improving yourself, that last line that you said. I'm trying to segue into a question that's a bit of a difficult question. What would you say is the hardest lesson that you learned? And I guess by learning it, you improved yourself as well.
Ooh. I guess with last year or 2020, especially with the pandemic, with the layoff, with everything, I guess my hardest lesson was not to get too comfortable, especially whenever you're trying to pursue your own goals. Because throughout after I graduated and everything, it's like I had been juggling the ideal of freelancing, things like that. But once I got into my field as a multimedia designer, it kind of got pushed into the back seat, because like, okay, well, I got this position. To me, it was security. I'll grow my blog kind of casually. And once everything that happened in 2020 hit, I realized that I should not have procrastinated on my personal goals as much as I did. Once that whole security was stripped away, it really opened my eyes to how far I still needed to go to get to where I had planned to get to back then. So if you do have a goal that you want to strive for, get out of your comfort zone. It's like, if you are comfy where you are, you're not going to really accomplish anything, because you're going to stay where you are comfortable at. You're going to have to get out of that comfort zone and push yourself into the unknown and say, okay, look, I don't know where this is going to lead to, but I have to leave where I am now to get to where I need to be. And I say that was my harshest lesson, because if I did still have my role as a multimedia designer with Victor Trail, which I would have loved. I love the company still. I don't think I would have made as much improvements with Kyrabe Stories as I would have now.
Honestly, I couldn't agree more. Oh, Anthony, I saw you unmute. Go ahead.
No,
I'm just
no,
excited.
No, please, Sade, it's all you.
No, I was just thinking about everything you're saying. It's like there's this there's a discomfort that you need to get to in order to grow, right? And it's like, as long as you stay safe, you'll never be uncomfortable enough to want to change or push yourself to change. So it's like this uncomfortable, it's like an uncomfortable lesson. Like, you have to be uncomfortable to like push the limits and figure out a new side of you.
Yep. Double, triple, quadruple, underline everything being said. And Kyndall, thanks again, because I think, not only are you going to be inspiring, I think, a lot of students who listen to this, you're inspiring, I think, us too, as you're saying this, because it really is one of those lessons that you can never learn too many times. You've got to push yourself out of your comfort zone. You got to keep growing. Like, you have to keep going to a new positive direction.
And one thing I try to keep in mind is that where I am now, there was one point where I was terrified, thinking I would never get to that. And that's with everyone. It's like, where you are now, there was some point where the younger you could not have even fathomed getting to where you are now. And it will be the same way, where whatever point that you feel like, you know what, there is no way I can get to that point. If you go ahead and start putting in the baby steps, you will get to that point to where it seems like the norm. But you have to get out of the comfort zone in order to get to that point. Even where you are now and where you want to get to, they're going to become like almost the same thing, but you have to be willing to make that transition.
Kyndall, where can people find you on the internet? Can you give us your handles, tell us what the website is for your blog? How can people find you if they want to check you out?
No problem. The blog is kyrabestories.com. So it's KYRABE stories. So STORIES.com. I want to say I spend most of my time on TikTok now. So that's at Kyrabe Stories. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The Instagram page is kind of the oddball of the social media pages, where Stephen and I will post pictures of different places we might visit. So it's a little bit of change, but yeah, if you just look up at Kyrabe Stories, you'll see me pop up on different social media sites.
Amazing. Well, thanks once again for being on today, and just appreciate you so much.
Thank y'all so much for having me. Like, this is truly an honor to be able to speak with y'all.
Yeah, it was really nice to meet you, and definitely inspired to just continue making mistakes and to like learn from it and to grow and push myself. Like, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
# always learning.
Exactly.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you'd like to learn more about Pathstream, please visit pathstream.com or follow us on social media. And if you think you might be interested in starting a Pathstream course, visit pathstream.com/programs. That's PATHSTREAM.com/programs. Until we talk to you again, happy learning.